October time was a rough time because I felt like I was getting peppered at football from all angles, staff to media. I was kind of like, I'm over this, I'm over football. I don't love football enough. I don't think it's worth the ag.
This week, we are thrilled to welcome a lioness onto Stronger Than You Think. She was a member of the England squad who made history back in 2022.
I just kind of went into Serena at the beginning of camp and I'd said to her, look, I'm absolutely exhausted. And she'd asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to go home.
Now, since then, the centre-back has featured a lot for England, including at the FIFA Women's World Cup and most recently across the UEFA Women's Nations League.
But I still didn't expect to go into a World Cup and play. I'm like, I don't really have that much international experience.
I am delighted to welcome Jess Carter onto the podcast. Hey, Jess.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Not bad.
You've obviously had a brilliant career. We're seeing you play for England, but also for Chelsea, so much more now. But, you know, it's not been an easy journey. And like I said there, it took you 4 years to get your second senior call-up. Can you tell us a little bit more about that time in your life and, you know, why did it take that long?
That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to it. I didn't even realise it was that long, to be honest. I think probably I'd say that I've always really struggled with my fitness, whether that be physically, like performing at the highest level for the amount of minutes that's required, playing 3 games a week with Chelsea and nutrition and things like that. I think that was probably a big factor into why I was maybe not called up for such a long time.
And at 26 years old, you've got a career that so many people aspire for. Did you ever think when you were growing up that you could be a footballer?
No, I think that's what I always find difficult when people talk about, you know, living out their dream, because this wasn't a dream for me. I didn't know it was an option. Didn't really watch women's football. It wasn't about then when I was younger. So literally I just was playing football and it just kind of happened, really. So obviously I feel super privileged to kind of do what I do now, but I wouldn't say it was a dream. It was just happened. And then the more I was playing, the more I was like, oh, actually, this isn't so bad, you know. And then before I knew it, I was at Chelsea and it was a career.
Was you always drawn to football, or did you do other sports and it just happened to like flow into football?
Funnily enough, I used to play rugby as well.
Did you actually?
Yeah, I used to play for Worcester Warriors.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, until I was about 16. So I played for like a local boys team, and then I went to Worcester and was there for 2 years. And then when I joined Birmingham at 16, they made me choose between football or rugby for injury purposes. And then I don't really know why I chose football, because I actually think I was better at rugby. But I think when I look back now, I mean, football's obviously progressed, I think, at a bit of a quicker rate to what rugby has. Yeah. But yeah, and I used to love rugby, and it's just, I mean, I guess I clearly made the right decision for now. So yeah.
Well, I can't say I had to go into football, but credit to you.
And you played with the boys?
Yeah.
Is that because there wasn't a girls' team?
Well, yeah. Well, when you first start playing rugby, it's like tag rugby. So the boys I used to that I was friends with in primary school played tag rugby for our local team. It's called Claverden. So I went with them one time, and then ended up just staying there the whole time. And then obviously went into contact, and I think it's at like 12, 13, you can't play contact with the boys anymore. So then ended up having to try and find a girls' team. I'm not really sure why I continued playing, like, because I didn't know anyone else that played rugby or any girls that played rugby for sure. I think it was just one of the dads at Claverden that said, oh, there's this team, Worcester, which was about 40 minutes away from my home. I went there and then played there for a couple of years, yeah.
Obviously you chose football. Was there a player who inspired you, or was there a coach, or was there someone in particular in your life who kind of pushed you maybe in that direction?
To be fair, I think that my football coach at the time was called Dean Brandrick, and he was my coach at the club which was then called Woodlows and is now Warwick. It's just my little local team. So he coached my older brother's football team, and I used to go along on like the Sundays and watch, and I'd play football with the other brothers and sisters at the time. And he said about joining what was called like junior woodies, so just a bunch of little kids running around pretending they can kick a ball or whatever. And then just ended up staying with them for up until I was also 12, 13-ish. And then my manager, Dean, then made a girls' team because I would have had to...
Yes, Dean!
Yeah, no, big up Dean, man. He was top tier. Yeah, because then if it wasn't for him, there was no girls' team to kind of play. And so He made a team just so that I could kind of keep playing, and he was more than a coach. He was a close family friend. So, and his daughter, he managed to rope her in, who literally had no interest in football at all. And we just managed to get a bunch of our friends come in and ended up having a team of the girliest girls I've ever come across in my entire life. And Dean has converted them into absolute bulldozers who just... And I don't know, we ended up going on to being quite successful as a girls' team. We had never kicked the ball before, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd still be playing, to be honest.
So obviously, when you were 16, you joined Birmingham Academy. How did that opportunity come about as such?
Well, I think we had the summer break from the end of our season with Warwick, and one of the other girls, one of my friends, was saying, Villa and Birmingham are doing open trials. So it's basically you just go and you just kind of train for the day with all these other people that have applied for an open trial. So we were like, we'll just go, have a kick around. We've not got any training or whatever. Actually got into the Villa one on the day. They were like, we want you to sign. And my dad was like, that's cool, but we felt like we should probably go to the Birmingham one as well, just because of, you've already said you'd go. Went to the Birmingham one and also got in on the day. And at the end of the training session, they were just they took us into this little porter cabin thing, me and my dad and Dean at the time, and they were like, we want Jess to sign. And I don't think I really realised that it was a genuine trial to get into an actual football club. It wasn't just a little training session. It wasn't just a kickabout. I think my dad and Dean knew, but I had no idea. So I was like, cool, whatever. And then we got home and my dad's like, right, you're actually playing for Birmingham. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And then, I don't think I realised how big of a thing it was at the time. But no, I definitely didn't realise.
I think that was really clever from your dad and your coach. Because actually, if they'd hyped up that opportunity, you might have not been as relaxed, you might not have played as well, and actually the pressure was totally off.
And that is something I remember. The coach actually at the time was Mark Skinner, who's the Man United manager now. And I remember one of the things him saying was about me playing just with freedom and just being quite relaxed and having a laugh. And that's kind of like me now still, but I don't know if my dad and the coach had hyped up, then maybe it would have been different. But it was just another day of playing football, really. So
kickabout.
Yeah.
And the belief they had in you as well, because lots of parents, I think, you'd have that opportunity from Villa and they'd be like, let's just sign it, let's just do it. She's got this now. Yeah. But actually just to be like, you know what, we've got other options.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of, because obviously most people probably would have taken that first offer, but I remember the Birmingham one being a lot friendlier than the Villa one. I remember when I got to the Villa one, it was very, because they had some of the first team, they're already under 16s academy, and you're a teenager, you're playing for Villa, and clearly the bee's knees or whatever. I remember not being made to feel very welcome there, and it was definitely a hierarchy, you're not at our level yet. Yeah. And then I got to the Birmingham one, and there were players there that already played for Birmingham, and they were just so friendly. The staff was so friendly. It was a much more welcoming place than what I found Villa was at the time. Turned out to be the right option.
Absolutely, and it pays to have such a welcoming, positive environment, doesn't it? Especially when you are that young.
Yeah.
How challenging was it being a teenager, having that rebellious streak and doing what you wanted to do, but then also balancing a very blossoming football career?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And I remember I'm such a people person and going out with my mates and things like that. And I remember having to try and sneak out with my friends because, you've got a game tomorrow, so you need to rest up, etc. And it was tough. And I remember having to miss out on so many birthday parties or just little events that you kind of doing with your mates, whatever, because it's literally school, home, change, get to Birmingham, train, come back, sleep, school. It was just that constantly, and there was never really enough time to just, I think, be a kid, not even a kid, a teenager. There's a lot of, I think, times where I kind of missed out on that, which I think then kind of does contribute then towards your career a bit, because you have moments then where you then maybe go out and socialise a bit more, because I wasn't able to do that for the 4 or 5 years I was a teenager. Whereas some of the girls that play now, they went to uni, they had fun, and now they're like, oh, well, I've done that. I'm like, well, I haven't. So I kind of still want to get that balance, but it definitely took its toll eventually. That's probably what contributed to me not being very fit, because of once I'd left football, I didn't really care what my lifestyle was like away from that. I was going to have fun. When I was at Birmingham, in my opinion, I don't think it was that professional. I mean, people working 2 jobs or going to somewhere else. I'm like, football was just a hobby. So I'm like, all due respect, but I don't really care enough at this point to be living a certain way or a certain type of professional lifestyle when I'm just here to have a laugh and have a good time. It wasn't until I came to Chelsea where I was like, right, this isn't about having a laugh anymore, really.
It feels like it was just like a really fun, like, after school club almost.
Literally,
That's what it sounds like.
That's how I felt. I'm like, I just love playing football. So I remember a couple of times, I think, like some of the players, the senior players maybe got a bit more frustrated with me because of, like, I'd always give my absolute all in every single session, etc. But quite frankly, away from football I saw it as my time to do whatever I want. Little did I know that playing football is a 24-hour job, not just the 2 hours you're there. So
You've got to learn the hard way though sometimes.
I definitely did that, yeah.
So whilst you were at Birmingham, you get the call up for England. So how did you feel in that situation? Like, and how did it come about? Was it like a shock, or because that's quite a big thing, you know?
I honestly, I don't really remember. My dad drove me to the meet-up. It was at St George's, and we were driving down the driveway, and then we were proper hyped in the car. Then when we were pulling up in the driveway, we just thought it's just crazy. It's another world. And I do remember actually on I think it might be my under 19s call up, that on the brief it said you had to have 2 pairs of boots, and you had to have studs, you had to have molds, you had to have Astro trainers, you had to have gym trainers or something like that. And I didn't have any of those things. I had 1 pair of boots, which were probably about 3 years old or whatever. Like we couldn't afford to just go and buy extra pairs of boots and this and that, etc. And I remember really, really panicking about that because I didn't know the kind of people that would be at England. And I got there, and I remember feeling like it was the players that were there were quite wealthy players. So I understood the brief then, because I'm like, that brief fits 90% of the squad that you've got. So I remember my dad went and I think he did some extra shifts and managed to get some, like a 2-for-1 pair or whatever, Sports Direct or something like that. And they were just awful boots, I remember. It was pretty crazy to kind of turn up at St George's, going from this tiny little place. I live in a place called Barford in like Warwick, it's tiny, and to then be now at St George's where seniors players a bit mad.
That's the reason why we need to work to make it more accessible. And it's amazing that you've got the most supportive dad, but some people who've got the talent don't have that support around them, and therefore don't get those opportunities. So how passionate are you about kind of opening up those avenues? Because the Lionesses are doing so much work to make it more accessible. Yeah,
it's definitely something that I do feel really strongly about. And obviously a start of it is what we've done with the England girls and trying to make PE, everyone have to have PE 2 hours a week, I think it is. Like, that's already huge in itself, but equally, I don't ever want to see another England brief that says you have to have this, this and this and this, because a lot of the talented players out there don't have access to any of that. You're lucky if they've got 1 pair of boots, and we've kind of spoken a lot with the FA and people at England on how we can make it accessible for everyone.
It does feel like there's change that's happening. It's a shame that it's taken so long and that you didn't have that support when you were younger, but the fact is, hopefully more people will have that. Now going back to your call up for England, you replaced Lucy Bronze, 77th minute of the game, and you were playing Kazakhstan. You ended up winning 5-0. Can you remember how you felt walking onto the pitch? Having just had this chat with you, I feel like we've just been like swaggering on, just like, yeah, it's all right, no big deal. But did you feel like it was a big deal? Big moment?
No, not really. I think what's probably the biggest is it was Lucy Bronze that was coming on for. You know, she is obviously, I think she's probably your first name on a team sheet and has been for years and years. And if I know Lucy the way I think I do now, she was probably very annoyed to be coming off the pitch at all, whether we're winning 5-0 or not.
You were standing out from the crowd and named as Young Player of the Year. So in 2018, a big opportunity came at Chelsea. How difficult was that transition?
The initial transition was actually quite easy. Like meeting the girls, meeting the team, everything like that was really quite smooth and easy. I was new to the team, so Emma wasn't down my back or down my throat rather. Straight away. It wasn't until maybe the second season where it kind of went, right, you've been here long enough now, we sort your act out sort of thing.
How was it with your head of performance, that situation, was it?
I mean, if you've seen the documentary, you might be able to say that me and Bart don't get along so well. We just kind of came in, barking orders. I'm like, dude, you've literally just turned up, no one knows who you are. I didn't respect him enough to really care what he had to say. So we definitely clashed quite a bit when he first came in. So did some other people, but they didn't show that in the documentary. Clearly it was just me. I think that he's kind of taken on board maybe some of the ways that we were feeling as players in terms of the way he would communicate with us. And I definitely have more respect for him, knowing that he's kind of also taken that on board, and actually I know he's really good at his job.
And we're referencing, of course, the documentary that's all about Chelsea, One Team, One Dream. Having watched some of that documentary, Emma Hayes is pretty tough. And at one point she does say, I'm going to sell you. So how did that conversation come about, and how difficult was that as a player to hear?
I mean, I don't actually ever recall her saying that to me. I think that was just one for the cameras, because I don't remember that. She definitely did say to the team, though, if we don't step up, we'll bring someone else in or something like that.
She knows how to make a good documentary.
Yeah, that's for sure, because I remember watching it and thinking, she's not actually that mean. Like, she's actually a lot nicer than what I think the documentary showed, but, you know, good TV and all. The turning point was kind of in spite of some of the comments I'd had from fans or from coaches, etc. And it was just a case of, you know what, I'm just going to go and play, and either you play me or you don't play me. Like, there's that kind of, I think it just got to that point where I just stopped giving a damn, really. And then we had, I personally say I kind of played by default. We got a red card. I think Marin got injured. You had no other defender to play, so you had to kind of put me in at some point. And then I'd done well from that. And I think it was that might have been the year before COVID. And I started to play, I think it was just maybe after Christmas. And I did well, which is kind of lucky because my contract was up at the end of that year. It just kind of grew from there, really. And then we had COVID, and I definitely then used COVID to get physically fitter, in terms of I then was like measuring all your macronutrients and all that stuff, which I don't recommend to anyone to do, by the way. But it did help me during that period of COVID where the football was inconsistent. We didn't know if we were going to train, so you definitely had to be a bit more aware of what you were eating and what you were doing, so you could stay fit, because we didn't know if we were going to finish the season or go back into a game. So probably similar for yourself, just had to find a way to stay fit in that process.
Yeah, it was the same during lockdown. Again, we never really knew when rugby was going to come back, or even going back into the training environment. So it was just basically keeping fit and trying to eat all right. But it ended up just being like wine on the weekends.
Yeah.
So about balance.
Exactly, you've got to have balance, right?
I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone was in the same boat, but yeah.
You're in a relationship with Anne Katchenberger, who is a player for Chelsea. You live together. So do you keep each other accountable in terms of, you know, the meals?
She keeps me accountable. It's definitely, I wouldn't really say that I am very helpful to be around, because I'm like, she'd be like, oh, I feel like having a bit of a bad day. And I'm like, you deserve to have a treat. Whereas if I'd said that, she's like, do you really need that? And then, you know, maybe it's a thing in our age, a bit older, a bit more mature maybe. But, yeah, no, it's definitely helped, I think, through lockdown for sure, because I really, really struggled to motivate myself. I mean, I play a team sport for a reason. Like, when I'm on the pitch and I know that I'm doing something because of it's going to affect you and you and you, I'd run through a brick wall. But if I think it's just affecting me, I really struggle to really push through that barrier of like starting to get tough now. And I'm like, I could just stop.
What's your go-to treat meal then?
I quite like Asian food. So whether it's sushi or...
Isn't that healthy though? That's pretty healthy.
What you have, really.
Oh, maybe it's not. I always think that's a health food.
I think sushi's not too bad. We often have sushi at the end after games, but like if you go and have
after games,
yeah,
that's a treat, isn't it?
Well, what do you have after a game?
Probably some lasagna or something.
Yeah,
just.
Yeah, I'd say lasagna was probably less healthy than sushi. And
yeah, I mean, our meals are not the greatest at times, depending which.
It depends. I guess when you have away games as well, it's hard to
it's the away game.
Eat proper. And then, but it used to be, like, my family are American, so it used to traditionally be a lot of fried foods. So I've just gradually tried to make it something else.
Yeah, less fried.
Yeah, basically. Anything that's not fried is seen as a win.
4 years later, then you get your second call-up by Serena Wiegman. Brilliant opportunity. Were you pleased? Was this something that you had been working towards with Emma?
No, I was definitely happy with the call-up. I think that England for me up until now, when I got that call up from Serena, in that kind of 4-year process, for me it was just a bit like, if England happens, it happens. Like it wasn't really my main focus. I wasn't playing for Chelsea, so for me, I'm not really a goal setter. But I'd like to think I'm quite realistic. I don't see the point in putting England as my goal if I'm not even getting on the pitch for Chelsea, really. So I think it was definitely a case of, right, okay, I'm playing for Chelsea now. I've played almost every game this season. So yeah, no, I was quite happy when that came in.
I'm pleased to hear that.
Obviously, when you got the call up and that, what was it like being back in England camp? Because obviously going from like sort of club to England camps, it's like different environments as such, isn't it?
It's tough. It's still tough now. I mean, I really struggle going to England because I don't like to be away. I don't want to be away for 10 days on someone else's schedule, telling me when I've got to eat, breathe, shower, train. Like, I hate that side of it because it's, I mean, imagine going away for 10 days and having to be with how many women? 23 women. That's a lot of women to see all day, every day. Like, it is a lot, but at the same time, it's also a great group of girls. Serena's a great manager. So it's, this is what we're doing, this is the reason we're doing it. And then outside of that, kind of do what you want sort of thing. So she definitely made like the return to England so much easier just by being so direct and honest, which I really, really value.
Now, I want to speak to you about the tournament that kind of, I don't know, put you on the map a bit, put women's sport on the map. The UEFA Women's Euros back in 2022, you were part of that squad. Can you reflect on that tournament and do you feel like, oh, this is getting a lot of attention here?
To be honest, but I remember before the Euros, so we obviously did the team, it wasn't even the team selection, it was, I think, like a long list of players that were on camp. And it was the end of the season, my first year under Chelsea, where I'd played pretty much every minute of every game. And I was so burnt out that I just kind of went into Serena at the beginning of camp and I'd said to her, look, I'm absolutely exhausted. And she'd asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to go home. Like, I want to leave camp. I just want to go home because I'm so burnt out. I didn't feel like I could be around the girls. I didn't feel like I could train and give my all. And then it turns out I also had torn my hamstring. I'd been playing with a torn hamstring for the last month of the season. So going into, I was a little bit worried about my selection, whether I'd be selected for the Euros. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, I've told you how I feel. It's better than lying to you and pretending that that I'm okay if I'm not. And she still selected me for the Euros. And I think we thought I'd be ready earlier. And I wasn't. I wasn't at the level I think that was required to, say, compete to start, which maybe I would have been a month beforehand. So when I got selected, I kind of knew I was going into the Euros to basically be a team player. I wasn't going in to compete. And we speak about, are you there to compete to start? Are you competing to come off the bench? Or are you competing for team selection? And I knew that I was just competing to be on the bench, essentially. And it actually made it really easy for me because I had no expectation in for the tournament. I was there to be the best team player I can be and, you know, be a laugh and, you know, kind of try and drive the standards and drive the players to do even a bit better. And I was really actually lucky to come on against Ireland. I was really surprised when I got brought on because I knew myself I probably wasn't at the level that maybe was required. There's some players that didn't get any minutes at all. So, but it wasn't until afterwards where, whether it's through media, through social media followers, or messages you were getting, photos of you coming out of the hotel looking slightly worse for wear, like, or the Trafalgar Square thing. It wasn't until moments like that where I was like, this is actually mad. Some of the girls were getting, perhaps I think, eating a bloody pasty at the beach or whatever, like
can't go anywhere.
And I think it would just absolutely change for everyone. And of course, we've always had some more high profile players in the team, more so than others. But it was like, people that hadn't even played really were still getting, you're part of this history making team now, regardless of whether you played or not. Like, I've got that medal just as much as Leah, who's captain. Like, we've got the same medal, we've won and achieved the same thing. So yeah, I think it really changed for everyone, that tournament really, and it was just crazy to see how quickly life kind of changed for us all.
And also seeing you girls rock up at Trafalgar Square, like all dressed up, I just thought, I loved that because you saw everyone's personality and you clearly had a really good time celebrating.
Yeah. It was, you know what, it was like, I just remember being on the bus to Trafalgar Square and thinking, this is the last thing I want to do right now. we'd literally woken up. Me and Beth had woken up in the hallway of our like hotel floor, and I was like, the first thing I need is a McDonald's breakfast. And we had a meeting at like 9 o'clock, and we'd woken up at 8:30, and I was like, I ended up taking my McDonald's breakfast into the meeting, and at no point did I think, I wonder how this looks or what's Serena gonna say. I just thought, you know what, I'm absolutely hanging. I've had the best night, celebrating one of the best moments of my career. I just need this to get through, and that is, I think, what got me to Trafalgar Square.
How much are you enjoying where you are now?
Yeah, no, I think I am really happy. I think I've just got a better understanding of who I am as a person, as an athlete, and what makes me, I guess, be the best that I can be. And ultimately now I've got all the tools and the resources, and it's just about me implementing them. And that's for me the most important thing.
And you've just come off the back of your first ever World Cup. Yeah. You got to a final. How momentous was that in terms of your career? Did you ever think that that was going to be a possibility?
No, I didn't really. And even going into the tournament, I know that we were unfortunate to have a few big injuries, but I still don't really expect to play so much. And I think I've actually played a lot of game time under Serena, but I still didn't expect to go into a World Cup and play. I'm like, I don't really have that much international experience. So prior to the World Cup, so that wasn't... I wasn't really part of the plan. I thought, maybe I'd go and get a bit more game time than the Euros, but to start, was it 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 7 games was a bit crazy. So I felt really lucky to be on the pitch, to be honest.
How nice is it for you that you're starting a lot more than maybe you once were, and you've been able to completely be yourself throughout this whole process? I feel like you have given yourself that respect to just be like, you know what, I'm going to do this totally on my terms. And I don't think many people actually do it like that.
I think going through some of the difficult moments at Chelsea has definitely helped shape me to be the player and person I am. And then to get to England and have a manager who is just so happy for everyone to be themselves. As long as we're also living the team values, then she doesn't really mind how you are as a person. As long as when you step foot on the pitch, you're being the best teammate, being a great player, person, etc. She's pretty easygoing. So it's just nice to know that you can do that and have that support.
So is there any advice you'd give to your younger self now, knowing what you've learned and what you know now?
Continue to just have fun. I think a big believer, if you don't enjoy it, you won't be able to achieve, you won't be able to be at your best at all. Also listen to the coaches a bit more. I think people give you, now what I feel is that if people didn't care, they wouldn't give you their advice. And that is something that I do believe, whether it's not always given in the right kind of way, but I think that's when coaches are trying to explain to you why these things matter, or what they think you need to do to be at the next level. There's no harm in just trying it, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but at least you can't say that you haven't given it a go.
And something that we ask everyone on the podcast is there a moment in your career, in your life, maybe outside of football, where you've actually surprised yourself, you've been stronger than you thought you actually could be?
I think I've got a couple of moments, to be honest. Maybe they're maybe too deep for a podcast, I don't know.
No, please.
I have a very dysfunctional family, so it's my sibling's mom, but she raised me from when I've been born as well. So she passed away, and that was probably the toughest moment away from football I think that I've had, because I'd call her mom, she was someone that was in my life all the time. So that was a really difficult moment, and seeing the impact it had on my siblings, that was really rough. I think in football, maybe it was October, maybe three years ago. What year are we in now? 23? So maybe 2020, October time was a rough time, because I felt like I was getting peppered at football from all angles, from staff to media, etc. And it was just a bit of a moment where I remember Anne had got all my friends round to she knows that's to pick me up from ever down, just chuck me with my friends and I'll be good to go. She kind of had them all round, and it was just a bit more I just knew that they were there, and that was a really rough moment, I think, of where I was kind of I'm over this, I'm over football. I don't love football enough to go through bad times with it. I don't think it's worth the ag sometimes. So I think that was a tough moment, but like I said, I got a great support system that we had a laugh, and it was like nothing ever happened. So I'm just able to move forward with great people.
Anne sounds great.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's top tier. Having a good support network is something that I think that is the most important thing in football in life in general. And I think that, you know, it's really sad when I hear that some people don't have that, because I don't know really life without having that. And most of my friends are in football, so they've all gone through the same moments in football where you're the best thing in the world to you're the worst footballer in the world. And so to be able to kind of share those moments with them and then know exactly how to kind of help you, just having a good family, good people is so important.
Yeah, good people, good vibes.
Yeah, exactly that.
On that note, thank you so much, Jess.
No problem, thanks, it's been fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story. Thank you for sharing it with us.